What's going on, guys? I'm Andrew.
I'm Jason.
And this is Movie Source.
And today we're going to be doing our movie review of BiRDMAN, or
The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. So guys, we are going to be talking in depth about this film. There are going to be some spoilers. This film is it came out in 2014. I don't know the exact month.
It's not an old movie, but It's been out for a while. But if you haven't seen it and you don't want to know anything, stop this video right now, go watch it, then come back here.
Alright, so very quickly, I just got to say, this is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love this movie so much. It's pretty flawless to me, and, there's just not a lot of things that I can pick apart that I don't like about this film, and every time that I watch this film, I pick up new things that I love about it, and it's very entertaining, and the performances are fantastic. It's just such a great film. It's very well directed as well.
So many different aspects they do in the movie are just so well done, so thought out, and so meticulously looked through. There's not really any mistakes. Not very many movies are that perfect. This movie, I think, deserves the best picture that it got in 2014.
Oh, no doubt. I was so happy I was expecting, another film maybe possibly to beat it, like the one that Eddie Redmayne was in, the Stephen Hawking film, but I was so happy when BiRDMAN won because I really felt it deserved.
It's a movie that kind of makes you think a little bit too. You almost need a second watch to sort of fully realize everything that you just seen.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I watched this film, maybe it's because I saw it a little late at night, but I'm not gonna say I didn't like it, but I didn't love it as much as I love it now. I've viewed it multiple times now, so I definitely have a deeper love and appreciation for this film, much more so than I saw it when I saw it the first time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely liked the movie when I first saw it, but it wasn't until the second time where I realized, I was like, wow, this is one of the better movies I've ever seen. So
yeah, I completely agree. BiRDMAN was written and directed by Alejandro Iñárritu. He was also nominated for this film for Best Director, and he won. Very well deserved. He just did a tremendous job with the performances in this film, and also, bringing out the best in Michael Keaton, Edward Norton, and Emma Stone.
He did such a good job that this film won Best Picture 2014. This movie is about an actor, kind of a washed-up actor named Regan Thompson. He's best known for playing BiRDMAN, a comic book superhero. And what's happened is that BiRDMAN has kind of become more famous than Regan himself, and Regan has sort of created this alter ego between him and BiRDMAN, who has become his alter ego. And this movie is really about Regan's battle between finding himself, and battling BiRDMAN. So basically, Regan tries to resurrect his career, put on this play based on Raymond Carver, and this movie really is about Regan putting on this play and all the struggle that goes with that.
I love how when Michael Keaton's character Regan, he plays a superhero. That's basically Michael Keaton in real life. He was very famous for playing Batman, so I thought that was very relatable just in terms of Michael Keaton. That was very easy for him to buy into that. So, a lot of times whenever we'd see BiRDMAN or just we're talking about that, that's my first thought. I was just thinking about Michael Keaton because, up until recently, for many years, obviously he's very famous for playing Beetlejuice and very many other famous roles, of course, but he's most famous for playing Batman.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, I think it's fairly obvious, Batman's bigger than Michael Keaton, but Batman's bigger than anything, basically, so, but, getting back to it, it was very relatable to Michael Keaton, so I thought it was just a great artistic choice for him to pick this kind of film, so, for me personally,
it worked. It was believable. You kind of believed that he was this character because he sort of is, even though I wouldn't say he's washed up right now. But no way. Yeah, but no, I liked how we got the more artistic side, as you said, of Regan, where he's ambitious. He doesn't have to do this play. He doesn't have to pay for it out of it. He's doing it, as you said, for admiration. He wants to feel relevant again because as you said, BiRDMAN is way bigger than Regan Thompson. But one thing we should also mention is that BiRDMAN has also become sort of Regan's alter ego.
Yeah,
he basically
subconscious.
Talks to himself, or BiRDMAN talks to him, and whether it's known or not, Regan sort of has these powers that he believes he has that is basically BiRDMAN. Like at the very first scene of the movie, we see him just floating in midair, just sort of meditating. And throughout the movie, we see him kind of moving objects with his mind or with his powers or whatever throughout the whole movie. So this is kind of something to leave open to interpretation. So
yeah, me personally, I think they're more hallucinations. Obviously, you know, in the scene with the taxi cab where that's established when he's getting out, when he was flying before that, and then obviously they're shooting there's a big superhero scene where there's it's not really happening, but I liked, you know, the sense in his head that he's actually believing that that's happening, and you can see it in Michael Keaton's face. It looks like he believes that's true.
He's kind of like reliving his glory days a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was a really cool take on it.
Okay, let's talk about the characters. Let's start off with Regan Thompson, played by Michael Keaton, who he was nominated for Best Actor. He didn't win, but he definitely was deserving of the nomination.
Oh, for sure.
So Regan is, like we said, a little bit of a kind of a washed-up actor who wants to put on this play. He's thrown all his money in. He's basically put his whole life into this play to try to resurrect his career. He's kind of a little bit self-centered. He just sort of makes everything all about him. His family is kind of like
secondary,
left him a little bit because he didn't treat them right. He has an ex-wife who, you know, he probably didn't treat very well. His daughter doesn't really like get along with him. But yeah, he's basically been trying to resurrect his career.
Right, and they also make a point of emphasis that he's not a bad person. He just, as you said, he's self-centered. He doesn't beat or abuse his wife or ex-wife in the film, and he doesn't beat or abuse his daughter. He's not a piece of crap. He's a good person who doesn't make the right decisions all the time. And again, he's more into himself than he is his.
I think some of it might be a product of him just having all this fame for so long.
Yeah. No, like I can't relate to that kind of fame, but I can only imagine when everyone treats you like a god. You know, maybe you don't treat people close in your personal life like people anymore. You know, so that I truly felt where they were going with that take. Yeah, absolutely.
But you get the sense that he really wants to make this play work. Maybe part of it is so he can become famous again, but also just because he cares about it so much.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, his whole life is this play. I mean, everything is riding on this because, as you said earlier, he wants to show that it's not Birdman, it's Regan Thompson who's the man. So, you know, I thought Michael Keaton did just a tremendous job, and I was just so happy because I've been a diehard Michael Keaton fan since Beetlejuice, since Night Shift, since Mr. Mom. I mean, I grew up with Michael Keaton movies, and I mean, me personally, he's my favorite Batman. So, and maybe Ben Affleck will change that, but we'll see. But staying on topic here, Michael Keaton, I really was so happy. I really wish he could have won. I was really rooting for him, but you know, it's a very tough vote to get that Academy Award. There's 6,000 votes. He was very deserving of it, and just a tremendous, phenomenal performance. And I really felt for the character, you know, and just really determined to get this play going.
Another reason he might care so much is because he sort of realizes throughout this movie that this play sort of represents his own life, and he in turn basically becomes the character who he's playing in the play.
Yeah, no, he definitely becomes Raymond Carver for sure. And he talks about it in the movie too with Edward Norton, how he tells him the story about how Raymond said like
thanks for an honest performance.
That was such a great scene where we really get an understanding. Okay, he's Raymond,
and he says that's when he knew he was going to become an actor. Basically, he was putting on a school play, and Raymond Carver was in the audience and sent him this little note on a napkin saying thanks for an honest performance, and that's why he wanted to become an actor.
I love what Edward Norton says to him about the cocktail napkins as he was drunk.
He was drunk.
Yeah, such a great scene. So let's talk about Sam, played by Emma Stone, and I gotta say, I love the superhero collage we got going on in this film. You got Michael Keaton, who's played Batman, obviously. You got Emma Stone, who played Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Man series. Also, you got Edward Norton, who played Hulk in The Incredible Hulk back in 2008, which is now obviously canon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, and they even make references to other actors such as Jeremy Renner. They say, oh, he can't get in the play because he's already an Avenger. And then they also show
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
He's Magneto, of course.
Yeah, and they also show Robert Downey Jr. kind of, you know, on TV getting all this press for being Iron Man, and he sort of gets jealous from all that because he used to play a superhero, and now all these other people are getting recognition for playing superhero roles, and he kind of misses that a little bit.
And it's funny, too, because Robert Downey had such a crazy past, and like now he rose up above it, so I kind of felt like that was a little bit of the theme of
He was envious of him a little bit, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But getting back to Sam, as we were saying, Emma Stone, I mean, let's first talk about it. She got nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Again, well-deserved. She knocked it out of the ballpark. And the scene that should just tell you how amazing she is the scene where she tells Michael Keaton how irrelevant he is and just lays it down.
Yeah, she sort of gets her own little monologue there. Like Michael Keaton comes in and she's sort of basically she's been in rehab for being maybe a drug addict or alcohol addict.
Right.
And he finds a little joint in there and he gets pissed off and she sort of goes off on him. And like you said, she tells him, how insignificant he is. No one cares about him anymore. Like,
well, yeah, and as Jason was just saying, he goes off. The reason he goes off on her because now she's his assistant for the play, and I'm assuming because she got out of rehab that she made him some promises that if she works for him, she's not going to do stuff like that. And I think he even alluded to it in the scene, saying you promised you weren't going to do something like that. But it's clear that that's what happened. So he felt obviously betrayed in the scene, even though you could tell he's done plenty of drinking and alcohol in his days. Or rather smoking and drinking his days, but again, she's working for him, so it's understandable when you're paying someone on the job why he'd have that kind of reaction.
He's trying to have
his daughter too.
He's trying to have like a conversation with her. It's a little bit awkward, and I feel like maybe he senses that he can't really take it anywhere. So as a defense mechanism, he's sort of like, "What is that?" And he finds that, and he sort of goes off on her. And like she says, he basically makes it about him instead of about her, and that's when she goes off on him and gives this whole full monologue. And like you said, she just gives a really believable performance, and you see it in her face. And then at the end of it, you see her face change, like she kind of comes out of it a little bit, and then she just walks away.
She's definitely a very strong character, and also I love the scenes between her and Edward Norton. Whatever scenes that they had though together, also in the dressing room where he's naked, he's like, "This, are you gonna take my my coat? This is the theater. Don't get." Well, I forgot the line, but again, the dialogue between them was phenomenal. The writing in this film was just fantastic, and obviously just very well executed by these fantastic actors and actresses.
So moving on, we have Edward Norton. He plays a guy named Mike Shiner. He's basically a really good Broadway actor that they get to join the play. He gets there, and he's really an asshole. But
yeah.
he definitely helps Riggin with the play a little bit because Riggin's not used to this Broadway thing. He's more of a TV or movie actor. But he kind of pushes Riggin, to make himself a little bit better, but sort of in his own way.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you just said, he pushes Riggin, not in ways that Riggin wants to be pushed, because first of all, he's trying to put the moves on his daughter. That's always a no-no as a father. Also, he steals the spotlight from him. No pun intended, as Michael Keaton was just in that movie. Also, there's a scene where we don't see the interview, but basically there's a scene earlier, as we were talking about, where Michael Keaton explains to Edward Norton why he became an actor about the Raymond Carver story. Mm-hmm. And Edward Norton takes that amazing story and steals it as his own story in an interview, and also says that working with Regan Thompson is like working with a monkey. So he
kind of throws him under the bus.
Yeah,
a lot.
Really throws him under the bus. And again, he's putting the moves on his daughter, like he's, Regan.
Well, honestly, not at first. At first, he's refraining from her.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying Regan does find out about it at some point, which is when he goes out of the theater. But I'm saying he feels all these negative effects towards him, but it really is pushing Regan to be better.
Yeah.
As an actor, because what I love about Mike in this film too, and Edward Norton's performance, he feels like, even though Michael Keaton is the celebrity, like when they're in the theater, he's the god, he's the man. He does not give a crap about how famous of the celebrity Regan Thompson is, even though BiRDMAN and Regan Thompson are way bigger than him, which we see in the bar scene where he's like, nobody gives a shit about you, all right?
And
this
then
is
the
my
family,
and then the woman and her husband and son
ask for a picture
literally
with him.
the second later ask for a picture with him, and they say, can you take the picture?
Yeah.
It's Edward Norton. So I thought that was really funny. But again, I love his character, how egotistical he is, and what an asshole, as you said
He basically
earlier.
says, like, Sam asks him, you really don't give a shit that what people think of you? And he's like, no, not really.
Also, too, that scene he tried with Naomi Watts, he tried having sex with her in the motel scene.
Yeah, well, the whole thing with Mike is that basically he feels like on stage is where he really is his true self, and then off the stage he sort of is like not the same person. He's just like he has trouble getting it up, even, he says, but then when he's on the stage is when he's really living.
Basically off stage he has a facade. He's not really living. Only when he's on stage is when he feels alive.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool how they touched upon that. Now, moving on to Jake, played by Zach Galifianakis. Oh, by the way, we do want to mention that Edward Norton was also nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Again, very well deserved. Hope did not win, but I don't think anybody won in this movie for acting roles. But obviously, this film did win Best Picture, well deserved.
Yes.
But moving on to Jake, now played by Zach Galifianakis. I got to say, me personally, this was my favorite performance of the film because you don't expect this kind of performance from Zach Galifianakis.
Right.
I think we're all used to the Hangover type of performance as Alan, which was amazing, by the way. It was one of the best performances ever in a comedy. But that's his typecast. That's the role you expect of him.
He sort of made his name as like sort of awkward humor actor, and here he gives a very serious, very just great performance. He's not in that many scenes, but in the scenes he's in, he steals all of them. I think.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, because it took me a few weeks to see this film in theaters when it first came out, because it was in limited theater, limited showing. But people were telling me that Zach Galifianakis gave a serious and amazing performance, and it's not that I didn't believe him. It's like, how am I going to take him in a serious role? And he nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, when scenes where he had to be a little funny, he had good humor. He was
definitely funny.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to, but I mean, he wasn't trying to go over the top funny like Hangover, for sure. But I mean, you understood the character when he was being funny to advance the plot, not just being funny to get laughs, when he was funny in the movie. But he's just... I guess you could call him a little bit of a jerk, but he put Regan Thompson in his place when he needed to be. He's Regan's best friend. And I just thought he was amazing. And I was actually, me personally, I felt he deserved to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And I know they had a bunch of nominations for this movie already.
I just think he wasn't in the movie enough for that role.
Maybe, but I've seen other films where people get nominated for not as much screen time. So I felt that his performance was very...
Oh, it was great. There was
deserving.
one scene in particular I thought where... Regan is sort of saying just, oh, do this, do that, and he's sort of getting overwhelmed, and he starts almost like freaking out and crying a little bit, and he's just so believable. Like, he's just like, no, you have to do this, we're gonna make this work. And I mean,
yeah, like whenever, like as you just pointed out, whenever the show is about to fall apart, he keeps it. He's the sane guy around,
Yeah, he has to keep everything under control.
Yeah, like remember he says when Regan has basically said, I can't do this anymore. Like he's having a breakdown, and he says like Martin Scorsese's coming.
Yeah, he basically makes up all this so that Regan will sort of lift Regan's spirits up a little bit. He does what he has to do to get him
because as we just said, he's Regan's best friend. He knows what makes him tick. He knows how to push him. So it's just, I thought the performance by Zach was perfect. I thought the scenes between him and Michael Keaton, the chemistry between them and the banter and the dialogue, just perfect, and they both absolutely nailed it. Also, we're not going to talk too much about these performances, but we wanted to mention obviously Naomi Watts and Andrea Riseborough, I believe her name is. Who they played Laura and Leslie. Great performances. I thought again, we just talked about Jake putting Regan in his place. That woman, Laura, she really put Regan in his place, making up the whole story about being pregnant.
Right. Just
a very funny character, very meticulous. I thought she was very interesting. Both characters were very interesting. And also, going back to Leslie now, too, she's the one who gets Mike Shiner, Edward Norton's character, in the play, because I guess, as she said in the film, when Jake asked her, how do you know Mike Shiner? And she says,
they share a vagina.
We share a vagina, so... Just from that line, I was like, yes, I love this character already. So she could be funny when she needed to be. This film is actually, funnier than most people would admit it to be.
It's a little bit dry humor, but I definitely think there are funny moments.
There's definitely good funny moments, as you said, but it's funny moments that advance the plot, not trying to be an overall like a comedy.
It's not a comedy, it just has funny moments.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely comedic elements to this film.
Okay, so now one thing we really need to talk about this movie that really kind of puts it over the top is just the filmmaking aspect of everything. The camera work especially was just unbelievable. The whole movie is made to look like it's one continuous shot. There's obviously, edits in between that, but they do such a good job of like doing these subtle movements or like go down a little bit just so they can make these cuts where they have to change scenes. Like the scene where he's going outside into the public in his underwear. Like obviously they had to set that whole scene up, so they kind of needed to start that one from the beginning. So they sort of pan down for a second into like a puddle, and then they come back up. But basically, you're basically following this camera around for the entire movie.
Oh, no, absolutely. I thought it was a very bold filmmaking choice, and it just worked.
It worked perfectly.
It worked so well. I remember when everyone was telling me about it, I was like, Wow, I mean, I definitely seen other movies that had done that in the past, but nothing recent in my memory at least. So
and not done so well either.
Yeah, exactly. So to see, I believe it's Alejandro Iñárritu. He's one of my favorite directors now. He did Babel, and recently he just did The Revenant. Just such a phenomenal job, not only directing this film and getting just the absolute best performances out of Michael Keaton, Emma Stone, Edward Norton, Zach Galifianakis, and so forth. Just again, the way he used the camera in this film was just so subtle, and it was so. I really felt like we were in real time with these characters, not like, oh, it's 2 days later, it's 3 days later. Where are we in the story? How many days has passed by? We were in real time with these characters. It's like there's no breaks in between.
We were in real time, but they also use like very good transitions to sort of move everything along. Like you'd see a conversation, and then it would sort of pan up to the right to the stage, and it would be farther along in the movie. They don't really have to tell you that it's moved along, but you just know because you're seeing this play happen.
Right. And as you're just saying, the times when they are, obviously at the closer to the end when we see the jellyfish and a few other shots, it's very noticeable that they're cutting.
Well, yeah, those were cuts.
But otherwise, or in the film, you cannot notice the tiny cuts that they're making because it's done so subtle. It's just really bold in filmmaking. It was just done so well.
So another thing I definitely want to talk about is the score. The score is almost, not completely, but almost entirely just drums. And there are a few points in the movie where there is like a musical score, and I sort of made the connection. Maybe this is right or not, but I sort of get the feeling that when you are hearing mostly drums, is kind of when Birdman is more in control of Riggin. Like, throughout the movie, Riggin is sort of battling Birdman in his head, like trying to keep him out, like saying all these things to get him out of his head. And the drums are sort of when Birdman is most present. But then when the musical score comes in, is kind of like when Riggin is having his own personal moments when he's sort of lifting himself out of that persona, like he's sort of becoming himself again. I don't know if you noticed that at all, but
I didn't notice it fully like that. I mean, I definitely...
I always pay attention to music especially, so maybe that's just something I noticed.
Well, no, I musical scores, I'm a diehard musical score fan, so no, it's not that. It's just... that's a pretty interesting aspect of it. It's just, I will say, like, the scenes where Riggin was taking over, I did notice the music change for that. I just wasn't, like, paying as much attention, I guess, as you for the drumming part with the Birdman, but definitely now that you mention it, that's definitely, I'm seeing more... Not thinking about it.
I'm a drummer, so I just noticed that kind of thing. But also, I really noticed that at the very end, in the last scene of the movie, like when they're in the hospital and he's like walking out. Basically, he's walking towards the bathroom because he's gonna take off this mask that's on him, and like you kind of hear a musical score, and then all of a sudden you hear drums, and the camera pans over, and you see Birdman taking a shit on the toilet, and he basically tells him, he's like, "Bye bye, fuck you." And he leaves, and then it kind of goes back to the musical score. He opens the window. He sees these birds kind of flying in the air, and he's just like, he gets this like feeling of joy almost. The music is happening, and then right before he's about to jump off, you hear the drums again, okay? And then he jumps out the window, and then you see Sam come in. She's looking for him. The score comes back in, and then she looks down, and the score is happening, and all of a sudden the drums come back in, and she looks up. So that's just what made me kind of think like, the score was really Riggin and the drums were Birdman.
No, now that, again, just as you said, now that you mentioned that makes total sense. It's a really cool observation. I did notice, not as much on the drums, but more on the other
score,
music.
yeah,
the score.
Yeah.
I knew that's more when Riggin is in control for sure. I definitely noticed that, but I love that aspect you just added on with the drums now that I think about that more. And it's so cool how they changed it. Like, as you said, I did notice the changes in the scenes, but I wasn't like, oh, that's Birdman. Oh, that's Riggin. You know what I mean? As much as you were, but definitely a cool observation.
Because I'd say the score is about 80 to 85%, like just drums, like no other music playing, just the drummer. And a lot of times you even see the drummer, like they're walking outside the theater, Mike and Riggin are talking, you just see the drummer on the street. And then also, when Riggin is going to do the final scene in the play where he's about to shoot himself in the face, basically, you see him walking down this long hallway, and it sort of pans over to the side, and you see the drummer playing in there. Like, I mean, that's just something that I noticed.
We gotta also mention that one scene where he's speaking to the critic in the bar, and he's just laying it out to her, like what a piece of crap she is, and that all she does, like she's a reject.
She labels everything.
Yeah, she just because she was rejected in life, so now she just labels things, and she's just you're lazy fucker, right? I love that scene. He just put her in her place. And then I love how she just ended it. She's like, let's make one thing clear. You're not an actor. You're a celebrity.
True.
Like,
and she says she's going to destroy his play.
Yeah, but if you really paid attention to that scene, they were talking about like how basically the movie industry has been taken over by superhero films, which I don't know if I personally believe that. Obviously, they're the bigger tentpole films now. But that's like me personally, I'm a diehard fan of superhero films. I love good movies in general. Like my favorite movie this year, Star Wars was one of them for sure.
Last year.
Sorry, thank you. It's so fast that it happened, you know? It's easy for me to forget. But my favorite movie of last year, and I'm a diehard superhero fan. Superhero movies are my favorite, and Star Wars, of course, too. But those are my favorite kind of movies. The Martian was my favorite movie last year. I love good movies, and that movie was definitely taking, I'm not saying they were taking a shot, but they were definitely talking about how some fans just like one particular genre of films, and I love all genre films if the film is good.
That's the thing. Any genre can be great as long as it's actually made great, you know?
Yeah, but I loved how they were touching upon those themes throughout the film. It was very interesting stuff, and it's about a superhero, basically. So I just thought that was very interesting, and there's a lot of cool themes in the film that you really need to pay attention to. And again, if you don't love this movie the first time, that's totally fine. I'd say watch it. Just give it a second try. Maybe there's stuff you'll pick up in it that you might not have noticed, because that's what happened for me again.
And me as well.
Yeah, didn't love it the first time, and it's one of my all-time favorite films now, for sure.
With movies like this, I really feel like you definitely need that second watch, especially when you already know what happens. You're not focusing as much on, what's going to happen. You're sort of just seeing these other elements of the movie. That's for me why I always like, the first time may or may not be my favorite time watching the movie, but for me, the second watch is always the most important, at least for actually analyzing the movie, you know?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so another thing we want to talk about is the actual character of Birdman himself. The main character of this movie is Regan Thompson, but his alter ego is really Birdman. And in the beginning, I think the opening dialogue is Birdman talking, and maybe his alter ego, but he's just floating there, and Birdman is talking to him. And there's a lot of scenes in this movie that, whether it's just his hallucinations or whether he's real, like it's actually like Birdman kind of controlling things. Like you see Regan moving things around with his mind, or just like breaking stuff, or he like looks up at the light to drop it on the actor, you know? A lot of things like that. Regan just like spins a little cigarette container around after he has that fight with Sam, and then the whole ending scene, obviously, when he flies away or he doesn't, you don't know. But another thing I got from watching this movie is that the entire film, the one shot, is through the eyes of Birdman. He's the one standing watching everything happen in this playhouse, basically. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, but
I don't know if I ever looked at it that way. Again, that's a very interesting aspect to look at. I feel like you can look at it so many different ways, but again, just the scenes with Birdman, I love how at first they don't. I mean, again, me personally, I feel most of just about all the scenes he is with as Birdman, they're hallucination scenes for me personally, but I love how they didn't establish that at the beginning. When you just see him like floating like that and he's just spinning some stuff, you're like, okay, what's going on here? And then when you see him actually flying, you're like, whoa. And then you see him get out of the taxi, and then the taxi cab guy wants his money. Like, okay, so it makes sense. It's hallucinations. I love those scenes, as you said. And again, every time I see Birdman, just really quick, I see Batman. It's so funny. So
it's Michael Keaton in a suit.
Yeah, no, and wearing black eye makeup. Yeah. So it makes sense that it made me think of it.
But they really give the sense of making Birdman an actual character.
Yeah, no, but I loved also how Birdman had so much control over him. It was his subconscious as well, and I think a lot of people can relate to that when you're hearing that voice in your head, controlling what you do. So, I felt that was very relatable. I don't know in terms of relatable, in terms of the psychotic stuff he did in terms of shooting himself, but just that voice in your head that talks to you and controls the decisions you make. So.
Yeah, watching the movie again, I just really got the sense, like, the movie opens up with behind Michael Keaton and Birdman's talking, so you're kind of like seeing Michael Keaton through Birdman's eyes. He's just kind of on the side watching, and then you just see him follow everybody around the entire playhouse, just looking at all the actors. He gets bored with these people, so he goes up and finds some other people. And then one of the scenes, like near the end of the movie, where right before Regan's about to shoot himself, is just going down this long hallway, and he sees the poster of Birdman that Regan has kind of destroyed off in the corner, and then that's when you go into Regan, basically when his ex-wife walks in, and they have that whole talk, and he's basically about to off himself. But I don't know. That's just something I got from watching the movie again.
No, I that's a very interesting aspect, and I love how Birdman just drives Reagan insane.
He does.
It's just the scenes between, and Michael Keaton really sold that and pulled that off well, where he's doing that voice he does for Birdman, and like you can really believe that he's like his subconscious and he's talking to himself. It was really good. Again, just a fantastic performance by Michael Keaton. Just very well deserved in his nomination. I just wish he could have won. Unfortunately, he didn't. But just awesome job. So final thoughts for me, as I said earlier, this is one of my all-time favorite films. I love this movie so much. The more times I watch it, as I said, I pick up some new things here and there, but the biggest thing, I love it more every time I watch it. It's amazing, and I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Now, normally I don't give films that high of a score. This is one of them. So
this is one of those movies that just kind of makes you think and almost reassess your own life a little bit. You kind of relate with Reagan a little bit, even though he's a celebrity, but you sort of just see his transformation throughout the whole movie. I'm going to have to give this movie a solid 10 out of 10 as well.
The film is well directed. It's well paced. The story is fantastic. The acting is top notch.
The visual cues are all perfect. The timing in this movie is just perfect.
And also the way the camera is used in this film. There's not a lot of things I can find in this film that I have a problem with.
In great movies, you can usually find some problems, whether it be with the plot or with the camera or with whatever. In this movie, I'm hard pressed to find anything.
Well, yeah, there's no film is flawless and perfect, but
this is close.
There's just not very many things that bother me in this movie, and I love it every time I watch it, and I would absolutely recommend this film.
Definitely. Go see it, and if you've already seen it, watch it again.
Yeah, again, if you haven't, and also if on the very first viewing, you're not a huge fan of it,
give it some time, and then give it some, don't have to watch it twice in a row.
Give it a second check out.
Yeah, definitely give it a second watch.
And if you don't like it in the second watch, all film is subjective.
Of course.
Fair deal.
Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. We really want to know your thoughts on this one. Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to see more videos like this one, you can hit the subscribe button.
See you guys next time.